Let me ask you something real serious. Have you ever looked in the mirror, tears in your eyes, fists clenched, and asked, why am I not further in life? Why does it feel like I'm stuck, no matter how much I want more? Maybe you've been grinding for years. Maybe you've tried every shortcut, followed every tip, watched every motivational video, and still it feels like you're running on a treadmill while the world passes you by. Let me tell you something that might hurt, but it'll also set you free. Wanting more is not enough. Wishing for better is not enough. Crying, hoping, even praying. It's not enough unless it's matched by relentless action. That's the difference. That's why 2% succeed and 98% don't. It ain't because the 2% were born special. It's because they refuse to stay where they were. You see, success isn't reserved for some chosen elite. It's reserved for the ones who are hungry enough, crazy enough, and committed enough to go get it. The truth is, most people want the reward, but they don't want the work. They want the shine, but not the grind. They want the outcome, but not the process. That's where the 98% fall off. They dream big, but they live small. They talk loud, but act soft. And they'll give you a list of excuses that sounds like poetry. I didn't have the support. I was born in the wrong place. Life ain't fair. You're right. Life isn't fair, but guess what? The 2% succeed anyway, because here's the deal. The 2% made a decision. A firm, non-negotiable decision that mediocrity was not their final destination. They decided that fear wasn't going to run the show. They decided that failure wasn't going to be their finish line. They stopped looking for handouts and started building themselves up brick by brick. And yes, it hurt. Yes, it was lonely. Yes, they got laughed at, doubted, and dismissed, but they kept pushing. Most people stop at pain. The moment life punches them in the mouth, they back down, they shrink. They say, maybe this isn't for me. But the 2%. They lean into the pain. They understand that pain is part of the price. You don't get greatness on discount. You pay full price in blood, sweat, tears, time, and faith. You invest when nobody's looking. You build when nobody's clapping. You grind when your body's tired and your mind is screaming to quit. Let me break it down. The 98% live reactive lives. They wake up and let the day happen to them. No plan. No intention, just vibes. They let distractions steer their focus. They let opinions shape their destiny. They wait for motivation instead of mastering discipline. Motivation fades, but discipline shows up when motivation is dead. That's what the 2% understand. They know success isn't sexy. It's repetitive. It's boring. It's doing the same thing over and over until mastery is born. While the 98% chase excitement, the 2% chase excellence. They don't need the crowd. They don't need the likes. They don't need the validation. They've got vision, and vision will always outlast hype. Let's talk about belief. The 2% believe in themselves, even when no one else does. They've trained their minds to see possibility where others see problems. They've conditioned their hearts to keep going when it would be easier to fold. You want to succeed, you gotta believe harder than the doubt. You gotta speak louder than the fear. You gotta see it, speak it, and then work like hell to make it real. But that's where most people stop. They get excited, they write their goals, they talk a big game. But when the grind gets gritty, they start to negotiate with their dreams. Well, maybe I don't need to be that successful. Maybe this is good enough. No, the 2% don't shrink their dreams to fit their comfort. They expand their capacity to match their calling. You know what else? The 2% take ownership. They don't blame. They don't point fingers. They don't waste time talking about what happened to them. They use it. They turn pain into fuel. They turn setbacks into setups. They don't sit in victimhood. They rise in victory, and it ain't because it's easy. It's because they've trained themselves to say, "It's on me." Let me be real with you. Every single person you admire, every millionaire, every champion, every icon, they all went through something. They were counted out, they were doubted, they were told no 1,000 times. The only difference is they didn't quit. They kept showing up. They kept swinging, even when it was dark, even when nobody believed, even when it felt like it was never gonna happen. And that's what separates the 2%. They don't just dream, they do. They don't just want, they work. And when life knocks them down, and it will, they get up again and again and again. That's where success is built, in the again. Now listen close. This ain't about being perfect. The 2% mess up too. They fall, they fail, but they learn, and they grow, and they refuse to be defined by their mistakes. They use failure as a mirror, not a wall. They don't let one chapter write their whole story. They write their way out with faith, focus, and fight. You've got a choice to make, right now. You can keep doing what you've been doing, playing small, blaming the world, hoping it gets easier. Or you can step into the grind. Step into the 2%, not by talking different, but by acting different, by showing up earlier, working longer, thinking sharper, believing stronger. You've got more in you than you've ever tapped into. There's a version of you that's locked up behind fear, behind doubt, behind excuses. And the key, it's in your hands, not in your boss's hands, not in your parents' hands, not in the government's hands. Yours. You are the solution. You are the strategy. You are the power you've been waiting for. The 2% aren't magical. They're intentional. They decide what they want, and then they make the sacrifices to get there. Sleep, cut. Distractions, cut. Toxic people, gone. Complaining, over. They walk like winners before they ever win. Because they know if you carry yourself like a champion in private, you'll live like one in public. This isn't about talent. Plenty of talented people are broke. Plenty of gifted folks are miserable. This is about consistency, faith, grit, focus, the stuff nobody sees, the stuff that gets no applause. But that's the stuff that separates winners from wannabes. So why do only 2% succeed? Because they're the ones willing to be disciplined when everyone else is distracted. They're the ones willing to be consistent when others are emotional. They're the ones willing to keep going when the rest give up. And you've got the power to join them, not tomorrow, not next year. Right now, the only question is, are you ready to stop playing safe? Are you ready to stop running from the pain? Are you ready to stop waiting for a sign and start becoming one? Because the moment you commit, really commit, everything changes. The doors start to open, the ideas start to flow, the momentum builds, not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. Now let me ask you again, what side do you want to live on? The 98% who settle, or the 2% who soar? The world doesn't need more people living average. The world needs more people who rise, who fight, who lead by example, who become proof that it's possible, and maybe, just maybe, that person is you. So now you know the truth. The gap between the 2% and the 98% isn't fate. It's not magic. It's not about who you know, where you were born, or what you've been through. It's about who you decide to become. Every single day, life hands you a pen, and you write the story. Are you going to keep writing chapters full of excuses, fear, and procrastination? Or are you finally ready to flip the page and write a new beginning? You see, the 2%, they aren't better than you. They just made a decision that mediocrity wasn't their destiny. They looked around and said, I wasn't born just to survive. I was born to thrive. And they backed that up with action. Not just one good day, not just one fired up morning. They showed up every day, especially when it wasn't convenient. That's what greatness demands, consistency in discomfort. But most people never make it past the pain. They never push through the doubt. They never fight past the fear. They quit 5 minutes before the breakthrough. Don't let that be your story. Don't you dare bury your potential just because the road gets hard. The road is supposed to be hard. That's what makes it worth it. That's what filters the 2% from the rest. Your life will only change when you decide it must. Not when it's easy, not when it's popular, not when someone tells you it's your time, but when you declare it, when you look at yourself and say, I don't care how long it takes, I'm not stopping until I get there. You've got something inside you the world hasn't even seen yet. Dreams, gifts, power. It's time to bring it all to the surface. Stop sitting on greatness. Stop holding back. Start acting like the version of you who already made it. Start thinking, working, moving, speaking like someone who belongs in the 2%. Because if you're still breathing, you're still in the fight. You're not done, and you're definitely not average. So rise up. Lock in, go harder, go further, go louder. The world ain't waiting, and success sure isn't handing out invitations. You want in, then show up like you belong.